For years, people were talking about a sequel, and I say, oh, yeah. I believe that when I'm standing in front of the camera.
Many people say the sequel of Silent of the Lambs. But for me, it's not the sequel of Silent of the Lambs.
How could Anthony not read Hannibal and say, how could I not do this?
Jodie was really wonderful in the first movie. So I'm delighted that I've been given the opportunity, and I can only hope that I'll do as well as she did.
Everything in my business, whether you're actor, director, producer, is all about material. Because once you got that script, the doing of, from my point of view, is relatively straightforward.
I'm a very good friend with Tom Harris. I knew he worked in the book. After Silent of the Lambs. He worked with the sequel of Silent of the Lambs.
It was very interesting because, I mean, every 6 months or so, Dino would pick up the phone or, I would talk to him, how are you doing? How's it going? Do you have any idea of when the book is going to be delivered? You're so anxious about it, and Jonathan Demme along the whole process too, was involved in, have you heard anything, or, how's it going? And so it was quite a shock, actually, when Thomas called up to say, I've delivered.
I was kind of surprised by this book, Hannibal. I thought it was really overreaching and so bizarre. So I couldn't make up my mind about it at all. Some of it I found intriguing, some I was a little doubtful about.
We were a little concerned when Anthony had come out in the press saying that he was retiring. When we were in Rome last year, again, he was in Rome shooting Titus, called him on the phone to say hello, and Dino goes, Anthony, but really, do Hannibal. And I think, Anthony had just gone through so many pictures with directors that he was having a tough time with, and he was tired and change of life. And he said, well, if the director's right and if the script is good.
So I was in Malta, and one morning, Ridley called, said, Dino, I come to say hello to you.
We've been shooting side by side, day and night, had never seen each other. He was staying in a different part of Malta than we were, so it was kind of funny that, we hadn't run into each other.
He came around 10 o'clock in the morning, before start to shooting, we had coffee together, and we social conversation, blah, 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 blah.
So Ridley left, went on to prepare his movie, and later on in the day, we get a fax, not a call, but a fax from Rick Nocita saying that Jonathan Demme has passed. A shock, an utter shock, because you're so far along this whole, thing of even the making of Silence of the Lambs when they needed the character of Lecter. Fine, great, we love Jonathan, it'd be great for the project. And then from the continuation of the congratulations with Jonathan, and we hope to do a movie with Jonathan. So to find out that Jonathan had passed, it, struck us in our hearts.
In Italy, I say it's a statement. When one pope dies, we create a new pope. And they don't find a new pope for Hannibal.
When I was in the third week before the end of principal photography on Gladiator, I was standing in the Roman Colosseum and was handed a cell phone saying, it's Dino. And I said, Dino, and Dino saying,
okay, Ridley, if I come to see you in the set, you have a few minutes for me? Sure, Dino, welcome at any time you want.
And I thought he wanted to look around the set,
We've always wanted to do a film with Ridley, and just by him being there, serendipity, whatever you want to call it. But so Dino said, tonight I ask Ridley.
So Dino and Martha arrived with a few other people, and John Bon Jovi with him. So I'm thinking, what? John Bon Jovi, Dino, what is this about? And then Dino's carrying this giant manuscript, which is almost as big as he is, because Dino's small.
So as soon as we get out of the car on the set, Ridley's there with a cigar to show us around. Dino takes him aside right away.
And he talked and said, oh, fantastic. And then said,
Say, Ridley, you like to do Hannibal?
And so I said, basically, Dino, I'm doing a Roman epic right now. I don't want to do elephants coming over the Alps next, old boy. And he went, Martha translated, and he went, no. He said, Hannibal Lecter.
So Dino said, you must read it. I need an answer by Monday, because we were leaving for Rome the next day. We were going away for the weekend, and we needed to start our list of directors, because Dino will not wait.
And so at 3 weeks before the end, when the heat is on, when you're filming anything of any scale, let alone Gladiator, I read the thing in like 4 sittings. Once I was in, I was absolutely in, and I read it within the week. And I call up Dino saying,
This book is a symphony. It's a fantastic book, and I want to do it.
And so we're very excited. I mean, to have Ridley and do Hannibal, it's major.
I call up Dino saying, certainly I'm interested in the material. The first person I would like to talk to, though, is Tom Harris. And that was the next call. I was given the name Tom Harris and wrote down, and I'm hopeless with names, and I wrote the number down in Miami. And I'd been shooting all day, and I then looked at rushes, and then had a bit of dinner. I staggered back at the house I was renting in Malta at about 11:45 at night, met the 9.5 yards of fax on the floor from DreamWorks and dealt with that, and then finally thought, oh God, I better call Tom Harris. So I went beep, 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 called the number. This woman voice called and said, hello. I said, hello, is Ted Tally there? And she said, Ted Tally? I went, I must have the wrong number. Click, okay? So I thought I'd give it 8 minutes. You fool, you fool, you fool, right? And 8 minutes later, I called back, and this woman came, and I could hear a kind of music tone in her voice. I said, different voices, Tom Harris there, please. She said, yes, since I got the conversation with Tom Harris. Cut long story short, when I finally met Tom about 4 months later, the woman was his wife who said, you were the gentleman who came on and said, hello, is Ted Tally there, weren't you? Tom and I had a big laugh about that.
When they phoned me and told me that they were going to make a movie of it and would I be interested, I said yes. I said, I think, it needs condensing. And they tried out a few script writers, a few screenplay writers, and they came up finally with this wonderful writer, Stephen Zaillian.
Now, I would never have taken it on if I hadn't had such a good book. I mean, I love to work with Anthony, but I wouldn't have taken the risk if the material hadn't been so interesting. And then because the material was good, I was able to get Steve Zaillian.
Stephen Zaillian is a genius. He's the best writer, not only the most expensive, but the best writer in the industry.
I get very involved with the writing. I love the process with the writers, okay? I don't write it. I can't. I'm not good at that. Or I can write, but I couldn't write not even the same court as Steve Zaillian, right? So forget it. I'm not going to spend 2 years writing a goddamn screenplay, which is not as good as what he can write in 6 weeks, So I'd rather pay him the money, and enjoy the process of talking to him, exchanges of ideas. And particularly writers like that writers like him are special, unique. Well, some writers talk to you for a day, say, that's it, I'm fine, I can go and write now. No, that doesn't work that way. If it does, there's something wrong because you're just hoping for the best and you're walking away and letting them do it for you. And it might work, but mostly not. Steve's one of those guys who wants to know, he's like a psychologist, he wants to know every problem. And he's gone through the material inside out. He's come back with all the problems. He makes you sit and sweat through it with him and discusses every inch of the way with him, exchanges of ideas, what about this, what about that. And I suddenly realized after I talked to Steve for like 25 days virtually on the trot, that he was exorcising the 600 pages of the book. He was distilling through discussion what he was going to finally do. One day he suddenly said, okay, I can do it now. And so within a month I had a 130-page screenplay, which frankly I could have just made. 130 pages is a bit long, but we could have just made it.
I had a hunch that Jodie Foster wasn't going to do it. We'd read the script and she'd read the script and I heard that she wasn't. So my agent said, what do you think? I said, well, that's fine if Jodie doesn't want to do it.
Well, to be honest, I must say, from when I read the book, I said, Jodie Foster never go to do this movie. And in my personal opinion, it's better for the movie because she's not correct for the movie, for the character.
I think the answer is probably best given by the fact that she had been there, done it, and in fact got the highest reward she could get for it, which was to be, and Academy Award winner for that particular role. And Jodie is a good director. And Jodie was planning to do Plum, and suddenly she'd got to go on it. She didn't want to change her plan. And so it had to become Next Case, quickly as possible.
A dilemma, but yet totally solvable. It would have been great to have Jodie Foster in the role of Starling, as a continuation of what they had started and what they had such accolades in doing. But when it was quite clear that she wasn't going to do, you can't wallow in a sadness or that, an actor is going to take that role and let it die. In a sense, I mean, the role of Clarice Starling doesn't die with an actress that is not going to play her.
I was disappointed that Jodie didn't want to do it, but I thought, well, onwards we go. And they came up with about 5 or 6 different female actors, and they were all terrific.
Well, it was interesting. There was, quite a bit of interest because it was also very controversial, but also a role for someone to make a mark, even an upcomer we were considering. There's a lot of talk that we had talked with Angelina Jolie and Hilary Swank. As well as Cate Blanchett. Everything was open and there was strong interest from all sides.
And Julianne Moore's name came up in that, and I phoned Dina De Laurentiis. I said, well, I know Julianne, I worked with her, we did Picasso together. I said, she's a terrific actress. She said, yeah, well, so we are going to work it out now. I said, oh, fine. I phoned my agent, I said, do I have any power of casting? He said, no, you don't have any at all. I said, all right. I said, well, of them all, I said, they're as great as they all are. I said, I think Julianne is probably closer to this.
I mean, Anthony, because I felt it was only right to do so, in a way it's his film and his subject, and therefore I felt certainly in this instance it was right to discuss who would be his leading lady.
And then when Julianne Moore expressed interest, I mean, this was a coup. Because she's a solid actress. She's probably right with her colleagues at the top.
I got a phone call saying they were interested in me for this part, and they sent me the script and I read it and really liked it. And then I was in London doing some press for Vanity Fair, and I got another phone call saying that Ridley needed to meet me in Los Angeles. So I had to go, after London, I flew back to New York and then flew to LA for a day, and then met with Ridley and then came back, and then found out the following day that I had the part.
She's a real chameleon. When you think of her, the kind of body of work she's done, and she's always different, to the extent that sometimes you have to say, who's that? Oh my God, it's Julianne. That's really a talent. That's great. And so she was it.
We were very lucky that Julianne Moore responded immediately, because she just so comfortably fits the role of Clarice Starling in Hannibal.
I think that in instances like this, the comparisons are inevitable, and of course there are going to be some, there's some apprehension about it because Jodie was really, really fantastic. She won an Academy Award for the role, she's a great actress. But it's a different movie, so that's the way I have to approach it. That was one movie, and this is another one.
Silence of the Lambs was an excellent psychological thriller. Hannibal is different, being, yes, it's a sequel to the characters, but it's not a sequel to that story.
Silence of the Lambs was a story about Starling, agent of FBI, in the background in jail, Hannibal Lecter. Correct? Here is the other way around. It's the story of Hannibal, free man.
If nothing else, whilst this is a quite different, and in some respects far more exotic story, I wanted to keep it actually within the bounds of absolute reality. Good afternoon. I have no idea what anyone's saying, but I'll just say a few words. I want to thank Mayor Domenici's office for all his help, because filming in such a splendid city is difficult, and I want to be able to get all the beauty of the city, and through your office, we're able to do that. Thank you very much.
So I'm Martha De Laurentiis, and I'm just thrilled that you're here to share our excitement. We start tomorrow, and let me introduce Hannibal Lecter.
Hannibal Lecter,
Anthony
Anthony
Hopkins.
Hopkins.
You don't need a translation for Anthony. E la Clarice Starling, Julianne Moore.
I think we're all going to really enjoy ourselves here. Thank you very much.
The technicalities of making a movie sometimes can get a little tedious, but they pay me to do it, and I'm fine with that. I don't mind. It's all out of fun anyway.
It's an interesting movie because there are kind of a million different tones in it. So the pace of it has changed from week to week, and the tone of it's changed. And so that's been really fun.
There's always trepidation when you're going down a route with somebody who's actually been there before and done it. And am I going to be allowed into the room, or am I going to be the organizer?
Florence is beautiful. Whether you have gray skies, blue skies, green skies, it's all with the backdrop of the river, the beautiful Tuscan hills behind the city, the ancient history that it has, that it shows in the architecture.
Florence is like the heart of Italy. So to be working on an American film with a foreign crew in the Italian city, I feel like a foreigner myself.
Everybody enjoy Florence. We receive fantastic cooperation from old city of Florence, start from the mayor. They give at disposition everything we need, almost for free.
Who wouldn't want to live there and shoot there and be in every palazzo, or invited into the Palazzo Vecchio, and anywhere you went, they opened up their doors that we could shoot there.
There are some days that Florence is about 1 million tourists, and all city has about 500,000 citizens. So that means that there are twice so many tourists a day. So we see it. When we shoot them some locations, we just cannot get rid of them, and it's very difficult.
Move on without stopping, please. Ritorniamo tutti in posizione, dai. Tutti a posto, ragazzi. Chi stava di qua, di qua. Ritorniamo tutti in posizione, dai. Tutti a posto, ragazzi. Chi stava di qua, di qua. Move on without stopping, please. Ragazzi, dai, avanti.
It would become well publicized, or word of mouth. We were there making a movie. So we were on the Palazzo Vecchio, we were on the Ponte Vecchio, we were everywhere, and wherever we went, there were crowds of people shouting, "Hannibal, Hannibal." I felt like Mick Jagger a bit, I didn't know, or Sting, I'd never experienced that before. It was a lot of fun, and people wanted me to sign the book and sign autographs and have photographs, and I did, and I enjoyed that, because those are the people keeping in work.
Tonight is the scene of the opera, which is very exciting because it's actually a piece of Dante's sonnet that's never been put to music. Actually, Dante's never been put to music before.
We could have just selected an opera, but I thought it was kind of interesting because I wanted the opera to be, reflect somehow Hannibal.
We had Hans Zimmer 2 weeks before we started shooting, and this was just 5 weeks ago now. So the first thing, Hans is just getting off of Mission Impossible because he's been working 24 hours a day for weeks on end. And the thing that we needed most out of Hans was the piece for tonight, because we really needed something to be able to stage, to be able to costume, to be able to cast, to be able to get, full production value. So Hans said, okay, let me see what I can do. So he and Patrick Cassidy, who works with him, came up with this fabulous piece of music to put to Dante's sonnet from La Vita Nuova. What's exciting about tonight is that we are shooting in this beautiful place next to the church, the Santa Croce, and it's actually the chapel of the Pazzi family. So as you know, Pazzi and this whole thing of Florence, the whole history of Florence, and why really we're shooting here is that it's a closed city with great history of tragedy, of medieval violence, and just lots of things always happening between the Medici families and the other families, and hate and jealousy, and kind of what Lecter has always appreciated is this culture that Italy has so profoundly in its soil that he's wanted. He likes this fine life.
We looked at the opera house in Florence, but it wasn't quite enough for me. And I was standing in the courtyard next to a church, which was to become a location for us. And I was looking at the courtyard, and at one end of the courtyard was a fantastic facade, beautiful facade. And I said, we should do it here. Why don't we use the facade of the building as the backdrop or the proscenium of the opera? Let's just get some yards of this translucent metallic fabric and hang them on wires, and that's it. with the opera singers at the front, and you have a ready-made set.
It took everybody, you know, because you kept replaying the music, replay as you do every single take. Everyone, every single take, just still loved that haunting melody.
When are you going to reach that TV? Are you picking up for that? You can't pick it up.
No one. Like you're drunk, it's seeing double. Hey, this is mine.
It was really outrageous. You know, we made a lot of jokes because obviously it's pretty far-fetched stuff. But we actually had a wonderful time shooting it all. Certainly, technically, it's very, very interesting to watch. I mean, the work that they've done is kind of amazing. It's pretty, you know, it's pretty far out there. I mean, it really.
That's funny.
So which one did you pull?
Who's real?
Right here.
It was just amazing to watch myself working with Anthony Hopkins in character. It's like it's really a great experience.
Is the top of the head already gone, or do you want it spraying in with the thing?
The worst part of the whole thing was getting the body cast done. When they put you in the body cast and they have to do all that stuff, because I'm claustrophobic, so that wasn't fun. No, it's just not real. I'm bigger than I thought, though. Yeah, I think they'll remember this one.
Some of it is a bit grisly, but we, like any film, if you have, especially in a situation like that, you have to take it very lightly and not get caught up in it.
This is for the blue screen. So when you see me, now obviously they're on the dummy, so they'll do the cutting of the brain. Anthony Lecter will cut the brain and do everything that needs to be done that he was doing. But when you see me with the top of my head like this, then you'll see this. So they'll, like, I don't know, CGI, is that what it's called? Right. Yeah. The brain onto this thing, and I guess this is their mat. I play people who are older, so I've aged in movies, and that's more horrifying. That's even scarier when you see yourself. Oh my God, that's what it's going to look like, huh? And then they had to shave. See, they shaved my head too completely, which I hadn't done, and I never noticed my hairline was that far back. I didn't really notice that. I've been covering it for years. I mean, I don't know if this could really happen. I mean, definitely not. Well, I guess it could, but so we're just kind of playing and creating our own little world and thinking what might have happened and how you would look, and then, you know, it's also a movie, so there's a certain. I mean, talk about, you know, acting and playing pretend. You can't play bigger pretend than this. I mean, this is really. It was gross, it was cool, it was like, wow, I'm in a movie with him, wow, there I am acting with him. There was just so many different emotions, but the biggest thing was a giddy joy of just movie making, and I said, oh my God, they're gonna be eating my brain now. Oh, look at that, how cool.
It's very weird. Very, very weird.
These are all Russian boars, and they are the tallest and lankiest of all the boar. About 7 or 8 months ago, there was rumors of this movie, Hannibal. So we started looking for pigs, and it all sounded feasible, and we knew we could find them. And they pulled the trigger, I think, in March and said, go get them, because this was one whole sequence that they were very worried, and still are worried since we haven't shot a frame of it. But they wanted to make sure that all will work. You know, they're meant to be killer pigs, but animals don't act. So you're always in a predicament. You want them to be aggressive, but not too aggressive. Anthony is supposed to walk right through them. Well, they don't know Anthony. So how do you make them aggressive, but to the point where he can still go through them? So it's a tightrope. What we've done is actually train them to go to a dummy and grab onto it. And essentially, it's just like a retrieve with a dog. You throw something out there and they go get it and shake it or whatever. That's what we've trained these guys to do. So what they do is we have a lot of prosthetic bodies, and they'll run and grab it and shake it and carry it. And once they do that, for initially it's just very quickly for like a split second, and then you feed them. And then over time, you progressively make that time longer. And now they'll stand there for like a minute and shake and bite and tear at it, and then we feed them. And everybody goes, oh, well, they just put meat on the body. That doesn't really work, and we will do that at some point. But what will happen is they'll just stand there and eat. So they had to be taught to really shake and tear at things. And then what we've done is now we've transferred that to a person. We used the stunt coordinator, Phil Nielsen, and had them grab him, and have had him do it for about a week and a half now. And they actually jerk him off his feet and run around with him, really. When we know they're going to work, we put them in their stall, we tell them what we want them to do, and then we go away and we give them like 15 minutes to practice it, and we leave it at that.
What I want to do is go from here in a fast move, right up, hit the top, and as we do, she walks in.
Hold it. Let's do the timing.
Okay, here we go.
Faster, much faster.
Oh, much faster, guys.
240 miles faster.
Oh, my God, much faster. Much faster.
Oh, we're extremely lucky that Ridley said yes, because what he's brought to the project, and it's tenfold what you could possibly imagine.
And actually have Tony go
with him,
and wait here.
Julianne could come
and
in.
Julianne comes in here, end of speed, starts to look in that direction. Maybe there, Dr. Lecter. Damn, but can hear the band. So it goes through that way.
Ridley is a genius. He's very intelligent. He never screams with anybody. He's a fantastic guy.
And say it again. Don't help.
Dr. Lecter, don't help.
And that's when he goes.
He's the sort of director who trusts actors. He expects me, I mean, I sign a contract actor, and he signs a contract director. He trusts that I'm going to know my job, and he makes suggestions. That's all it is. A director doesn't shout at an actor saying, you do it this way. Only a fool would do that. No more than I would tell him where to put the camera. I mean, some actors do that. They ruin films. So I trust that he knows his job, and he trusts that I know mine. I mean, with this part, he said to a member of the crew one day, was saying, let's try this. And he said, well, Tony knows the part, so let him decide. It was a polite way of saying, you know, he knows what he's talking about.
There were no surprises with Ridley in as much, you know, he's prepared, you know, is a master at it, and a total visionary.
He really surprised me when I met him. I don't know what I expected quite, but he's very soft-spoken, you know, really gentle guy. He's bright, he's quick, incredibly detail-oriented. I mean, he does so much stuff himself. I'll walk on the set and he'll be kind of like moving papers around, sticking something here and something there, and he'll look through the lens, do this, do that, and the other thing. And he's a real pleasure. Whenever you feel any kind of tension in a scene, whenever you're worried about something that you're doing, really manages to adjust everything and just kind of, you know, fill up the whole thing. It's great.
He knows exactly what he wants. He likes to have very particular images with a shadow, a particular angle of the face. He's a wonderful director, and it's very exciting to work with him.
He reminds me sometimes of Fellini. Because, you know, Fellini have a script in his hand, when he go into stage to shoot, he creates something new in every shot. Because, you know, you have two ways to make a movie. You make the movie like the script, day by day, put together, shot together, or you create a day by day movie. and then you have a different movie. This is what Fellini did in his time. It is what Ridley does.
He's very practical. No airs and graces about him. There's no mystery. He doesn't want to talk about it or pontificate about it or analyze it. He says, right, he said, why don't you come through that door and then go to the table and cut his head off or whatever he says. He said, all right, yeah, all right, let's do it. Action. Print, okay, cut. Do you want to do another one? Yeah, all right. Yeah, just do one more. A bit faster, maybe. Cut. Okay, check the gate onwards. A good director will either tell you faster or slower. That's a good director. Maybe do it a bit faster, or maybe don't do it too fast. That's a good director. All the rest, all the hogwash of talking about it, analyzing it, is just such a waste of time. Rehearsing it and analyzing it, waste of time. For me it is. Faster or slower. That's a good director.
It's very scary when you get a film like Hannibal because you just sit there for weeks going, how are we going to pull this off?
Working with Ridley Scott was, I mean, you can imagine, it's just an incredible experience.
It's not often a film like this comes along where you get to do such incredible and original makeups.
Well, it was really unexpected. We got a call from Branko Lustig, and I returned his call, and he said, do you want to work on this film, Hannibal? And it was like, well, of course. You know, we knew Ridley was involved, and that was one of the major draws for wanting to work on the film. I'd been a big fan of Ridley Scott for, well, forever. He's an incredibly visual director with a tremendous understanding of what the limitations are of makeup effects or animatronics, and he's also willing to listen to what the advantages would be if we built a makeup effect or an animatronic puppet in place of using the real actor or the real boar, for example, or the real baby.
This film was so much fun working with him because he wanted to try everything, and let's try this, you know, and then we try it, no, that doesn't work, let's try this. We knew it was going to be very difficult to pull off a character like Verger, because all these people have read the book, they have the expectation of what, you know, in their minds, and you have to come up with something that's going to satisfy them, let alone, you know, do something different and unique. What was fun and horrifying about that was that trying to create something new, because we did all these designs. We did like 20 different heads, all these different people were sculpting, and everything looked like a zombie. You know, when you start trying to do a skeletal form, building up on a face, anything teeth, everything, putting teeth in, everything looked like a zombie. And we're just like, oh, jeez, what are we going to do?
I wanted it to be actually something that really looked like a genuine, well, hideous scarring. And so during the process of trying to decide how do we make a man monstrous at the same time real, not like a face from the House of Wax.
There's a big question in filmmaking of what the audience is going to accept, you know, leaning more toward the realism or more toward the interpretation of it. If you look at a horrible accident scene and you see, you know, dead bodies laying there, oftentimes it looks so fake. So we had done reference as to what this character should look like, and really decided to move away from that because the audience, we didn't think, would really accept it as being something that could happen. You know, somebody that's just so horribly disfigured. People just don't want to look at it and don't want to accept it.
We did real elaborate, anatomically correct, you know, muscles and things. And we talked to, Ridley brought in expert doctors and talked about, well, that would dry up, it wouldn't work, and, you know, expose stuff like that. So when I got to Florence finally, Ridley said, I have a new idea, you know, and he showed me some pictures of a fetal type of a thing.
And it was interesting because it was touching, really touching. And I thought we'd go in that direction. So I wanted to make Mason Verger rather more touching than monstrous, because I think at the end of the day, I think Mason Verger was really rather amusing, was touching, still hadn't lost his sense of humor, and was, you know, almost sympathetic.
So we sculpted this in a day, and we showed it to him the next day, and he liked it a lot, but he wanted to change some things, and we took it another day, and basically that was the design that's in the film.
Well, it's 5 hours of makeup, then
an hour or so to get clothes and the wig, and really it's 6 hours to get all the pieces together.
I really love working with Gary. You can put him in anything and he just will make it come alive. So when I heard he might be up for this film, I was like really excited, because I said, I bet he'll let us, pull his eye open and things like that. And when Gary finally was cast and came in, the first thing he said was, "Do you think we can clamp my eye open?"
We have the mechanical baby from the opening sequence with the shootout with Starling. This is the baby that gets covered in blood and washed off at the fish market. You have this very violent, very aggressive scene where the Starling character, grabs this baby covered in blood and slams it down on this table and, is hosing it off. And it isn't, because she's in such a rush, she really can't be delicate with it. So, we knew immediately they were going to have to make the baby, and which realism in animatronics or puppets is to me the most interesting thing to do, because people have a point of reference. They know exactly what it's supposed to look like. Therefore, it's the most challenging. So that was one of the more exciting pieces to build, something that people would look at and not think about, this is an animatronic character or a puppet. Just believe this is a baby. The rig was pretty simple for Potsy. It was very effective, and I thought just horribly violent. But, those are the most fun things to do, aren't they? So it was kind of a stomach wrap loaded with these entrails and blood sacs and tubing and everything. And it was the jerk of his body falling that caused this blood sac that was pre-cut to open and the entrails to pour out. And I thought it just worked very well. It was pretty horrible to watch.
One funny thing, they came up and asked me about, well, what can we use? Because if we use blood, it can just ruin the stucco on the buildings, which is so old, and if it stains it, forget it, major deal. I thought about it, I said, well, probably if we just use Caro syrup and put something like Socaflock in it, like they put on Christmas trees, it's real thick, dry stuff, get red, put it in there, and that's what they did, and it looked real thick, goopy blood, and it, worked very well, but it just hosed down, didn't hurt anything. But it's funny, when you're shooting someplace like that, you have to think about all that kind of technical things you can do to ruin the, Florence, So I thought that was really funny.
Then here we have the mechanical boar from the sequence when the boars are eating the Sardinians, and this is the boar that chomps down on the face of Verger. The boars, or the boar puppet, just through discussion, Ridley was talking about wanting this violent scene, and of course these real boars are very dangerous. They're these huge creatures. We took a field trip and to view them, and it was very intimidating, these things running around, and of course they're kind of biting at each other and anything else that gets near them. So we realized that there was some risk involved in putting a person in this pen and getting the person too close to these animals.
Off of eBay, we got a Russian boar head that we used, and then we copied it and punched all the hair into it and made this really incredible boar's head, which they use for the close-ups.
Could do these snapping and biting scenes, and we also built a puppet of one of the Sardinians that was made out of gelatin and several layers, so the boars could tear away at it and eat it.
We took the full bodies of the two guys getting attacked by the boars and made complete mechanical gelatin-skinned edible bodies with all the sculpted underneath, all the anatomically correct, bones and everything, and then stuffed chicken and stuff in between all that, so that it was all edible. And the boars came over and just were pulling out the entrails and grabbed the one guy's face, ripped it right off, the gelatin, and it worked really well.
This is the puppet we created for the brain-eating sequence. Of course, the skull cap comes off, and we had animal brains in there, along with a kind of a fluid sac going over the top, so when you cut into it, it bursts out, and it's all runny and disgusting. Puppet has full facial movement, eye blink, eyeball movement, back and forth, up, down, jaw movement, cheek movement, neck movement, etc. the first thought was, oh my God, how are we going to do this? You know, it seemed to be an incredibly complicated sequence that had to be done with great precision. I mean, there would be no room for error on this. And, you know, of course, we knew we were going to be working with the mill to create the scene, which, you know, left a lot of comfort, but, you know, it's still a really frightening undertaking, you know, knowing that there'd have to be this exact duplicate of Ray Liotta in the form of a puppet, along with the makeup effect that went on his head, along with, of course, the talent of the mill, and just the merging of that. To me, it's one of the best scenes that has combined all the techniques available. It was an incredibly painful scene to watch, even having built the product, you know, and seeing it every day in my studio.
In that scene, there are 2 or 3 shots which actually are the figure and not Krendler. And I'm never going to tell you which ones they were, because it was so good. Eventually, when I cut it in, I had to look closely and go, oh, good Lord, that's the figure they made. So they did a really brilliant job.
I think the merging, the very seamless merging, especially in this Krendler character, of the makeup effects, the puppet, and what the mill created, more establishes the need for each basis for technology, rather than saying that one will outdo the other. It was about 5 or 6 years ago, everybody was saying, you know, the CG and effects are going to eliminate the makeup effects industry. Well, it's kind of nonsense, because we realize that there are things that need to be shot in camera. You know, the director needs to work with, the actors need to play off, or even the visual effects artists need to have a point of reference so that they can do their work properly. And I think that the work that we did with the Krendler character really established that even stronger. It was incredibly seamless. I couldn't see any change between the 3 technologies being used. So, you know, I think that's kind of a feather in everybody's cap that it went off so well.
You know, anybody can do gore effects and everything, but it's really fun trying to do something more that's a little classier, you know, and to try to do it, because like Verger, I really wanted it to be disturbing. I wanted people to look at it and just go, oh, geez, you know, and really bother them and that. I didn't want to try to make it gory where it's just, you know, blood and guts, and, you know, anybody can do that. But just so disturbing that it's in your mind. The thing that really surprised me when I saw it was the end with Ray Liotta. That stuff for a couple days was, and I've never had that experience since The Exorcist, of that disturbing picture in my mind of, like, you know, humans shouldn't see something like that, because it really bothered me. I didn't think it would, you know, and because we worked on it.
Hannibal's bigger than all of us.
The expectation for him playing this role again is huge.
It's bigger than life, and it's just great to see Tony back in action.
I was surprised, pleasantly surprised, that there was still a following for this terrible character I play.
People love Hannibal Lecter because first of all, because he's a charming Englishman. I mean, you know, the English got a way of saying stuff, you know, I'm going to kill you, you know, I'm going to eat off half your face, and it sounds so great, you know, so delicious.
And I think bad guys, I don't know, intrigue people. And this is like the ultimate in bad guys. I mean, this guy, he goes pretty extreme.
We are the killers. We're the killers.
He's very generous. I was expecting it to be great and disgusting. But I'm a big fan of Ridley.
I'm here to see the film, and
I'm expecting a wonderful success.
He's amazing. He's such an amazing filmmaker that the same with how John Demme transcended the genre, he's going to do it. So I'm so excited. I mean, this is not a genre I particularly care for, but in Ridley Scott's hands, you know it'll be evocative and engaging.
I'm expecting to get scared half to death. And movies like this kind of bother me. But I'm such an Anthony Hopkins fan that I'll overlook that.
And, I read it. I read the script. And I thought, boy, I wonder how he's going to be able to pull this off, because a lot of it was very, very dense and complex, all the stuff in Italy and so on. And he just pulled it off great, I have to tell you. He really did. Usually when you watch movies as an actor, you've enjoyed so much, you got to know where the camera is and all that. And I was just swept up in it. I was just on the edge of my seat the whole time.
I think that Ridley made an extraordinary movie. I mean, really, really beautiful. It's kind of I keep telling people that it's like an hallucination or something. It's sort of a fantasy. And I had absolutely no idea that that was the movie I was in, because I was working very hard on my own little segment, which was like my own little cop movie or whatever. And Ridley was just kind of building this, it's just, I think it's absolutely stunning what he's done. It really is.
It's like some great medieval drama of the 15th century. There's plays that were set in Italy, either by Shakespeare or by Thomas Dekker or Ford and people like that, like To Spiritus or Duchess of Malfi, which are really brutal plays. What I also thought was good of Ridley was to not pull back from the horror. I asked him about the famous dinner scene. I said, what are you going to do with that? He said, well, we'll film it, flat out. And he said, if it doesn't work, if it's too much, we'll pull back in the editing. So when I saw the whole thing, whole enchilada, I thought, that's really daring. And then all that stuff, he didn't pull any punches, because he shows the audience this is what happens when you mess with Hannibal.
It's like a car crash. I know you want to look and you don't want to look, and it's like, it's funny, it's just very bizarre.
There's that thing with the roller coaster, when you watch people coming down after the roller coaster, they're all screaming as if they're going to die, and they come up there all laughing as they get out. That's what we do with our lives. We give ourselves a severe fright in order for the release. It's like banging your head against the wall. When it stops, it's a relief to stop doing it. It's like you give yourself the terrors, and then you come out and you laugh because you've flirted with finality. And I think with Lecter, he's that kind of character.